Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
Today's podcast feels so different than the other ones I've done. And I think that's because to me, you represent someone that's more like wind and air than earthy and needing to plan. And so I think we'll start with a prayer, and then I'd love to hear who you are. And then we'll just trust that Spirit has a plan for us today.
That sounds great.
Okay. All right, so I know you're so somatic, so we're going to maybe take our hands to our hearts and our bellies and taking a deep breath. And if anyone wants to do this with us, just imagining that we're all sitting together and we're in a sacred space, no matter where we are sitting, just creating sacred space for each one of us to be here together. So if you're listening, imagine that you're sitting with us in circle. And as we breathe in the energy of earth, the groundedness, the energy of water, the flow of our emotions and our bodies, the energy of air, the intuition, the guidance from the higher realm. And finally, the energy of fire, the energy of Spirit herself. We invite all the elements and the energies that flow with them that are inside of us, around us, and that are really the building blocks, the foundation of life, to come forward today, to protect us, to guide us, to put not the words in our mouth, because I really intend for this to not be a heady from our mind podcast, but a transmission, an attunement to the energy that is truth, to the energy that flows between the two of us and whoever is listening, to whatever wants to surface. And so we are we're open to your greatness, Spirit. And I see this huge hawk just kind of hovering over us. And so we are open to this visionary, this guidance from the hawk that flows from Spirit always and flows into our hearts. And that our words, our meditations, our expressions that they come from our heart. Oh. Would you add anything? Would you like to? Oh. And so it is done.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So Amanda Frederick, you are a somatic coach and so explain to me, an evolutionary astrologer.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about who you are.
Yeah. So I do somatic coaching. I've primarily worked within the realms of intimacy, relationship. I've worked with a lot of women coming into embodied love. So transitionary phases of life, whether that's a breakup, a divorce, entering into a relationship, entering into motherhood. It's typically people. I've also worked with couples as well. People that are really at the doorway of change and they're not willing to ignore it anymore.
It's beautiful. And how do you help people? Is it a somatic session?
Yeah, so I do somatic coaching, somatic sessions. Primarily, because of the nature of the work being so deep, I typically work with people for 3 to 6 months. And then I've recently integrated evolutionary astrology in a way. Astrology has been a tool and a language that I've used for about 15 years. So it's always made sense to me. It was one of those things that came into my field just as like another way to learn about myself.
Yeah.
And to learn about the different energies in the sky and the impact that it has on me and my life. And I've really fine-tuned my awareness and my connection to the different energies in the field, as well as my own birth chart. And I think the missing piece for a lot of people, whether it's astrology or tarot or all these really beautiful ways to gain insight into our experience and build upon the knowledge of who we are, the embodiment piece has been missing, is what I believe. So my intention is to bring evolutionary astrology into the experience of somatics to create more of an embodied way of integrating the wisdom. So instead of just having a chart reading where you're learning about what's going on in your chart, it's like, okay, let's look at your chart in a way to where the information not only makes sense, but what are the embodiment pieces? What are the requirements for you to step into in order to move closer to your north node, which is like your soul's growth while here in this life. And evolutionary astrology is a little bit different than other forms of astrology. This one is all based on the experience of the soul. And intimacy and relationship is a really huge interplay with this form of astrology. It's all based on, the evolution of the way that we show up in the most intimate spaces. And what is required of us to embody to continually place us on the path of our north node, what our soul came here to experience. So evolutionary astrology focuses on south node, north node. In somebody's chart, we all have this.
Right.
South node is like the imprints, all of the past lives, what we've mastered. And the shadow aspect of that is the familiar patterns in which we show up in this lifetime that are keeping us from our soul growth. And so when we have that awareness and we kind of set the foundation of like, it's not good or bad, there are these things that show up south nodey for me that are really brilliant and really amazing that I've mastered. And then the shadow side of that is like, and there's these things that show up that are keeping me from my path in the here and now for this life, which is the north node. So we all have that.
Yeah.
But having it framed in that way, it's not just like, oh, my sun, my moon, my rising. It's like, yes, that is all true too. And there's a huge connection to those pieces as well. But if we really come to the place of focusing on why is my soul here? And what is being asked of me to grow into, to gain deeper connection to my soul, that's when astrology gets really, really expansive, and it's so possible. And the deeper you go, the more there is. Like it's endless.
I could say like 50 things about what you just said. No wonder we were supposed to. I think my husband said we're supposed to do a podcast. Yuda, my son, said we were supposed to do a podcast, and I almost feel like what you're explaining is, we all have I see this point inside of you intuitively also, that your north node, I mean, I see that as like like your soul's purpose. I see light when I see the soul is so pointed and direct. I can see how you would be passionate about helping people find that.
Yeah.
And then in the shamanic Kabbalistic world, it's that same energy. We have these things that we come in with, the ancestral, the patterns, the belief, but the soul knows the way. Yeah. And if we can get on that path, this is just all story down here. Totally. And this is the shining light.
For sure.
So
just got chills.
Yeah.
Truth.
I mean, it is truth, and it's amazing how we can come at it from a different maybe pathway, but that I feel like you and I are like meant to talk because we're coming from the same message.
Totally.
So if we're working with somebody on finding their soul's path and like finding that north node, do you work somatically to help move those blocks and those beliefs and that energy that's like more south node through?
Yeah. Totally. Okay. For sure. It also depends too. There are certain experiences that we also need to move through in life and experience in order to be ready. Yeah. And that's just true. Like if I was working with somebody who is 20, I'm not going to push them as hard to connect to their north node, because they also need to go through their Saturn return and have more experience that's going to shape them in a way to prepare them. That's not my job. That's their job. That's their soul's job. And it's the pulse of life's job and how they move through that. Whereas if I'm working with somebody who's like 35, like they're fucking ready. Like they are ready to be on the path. 30 is really like the cusp. It's like, okay, the 20s are to like experience what it is that we need to experience, fuck around and find out, make all these mistakes. Very south nodey stuff, get more clear on direction. And then after 30, it's really stepping into why is my soul here? So the pacing is really
Amazing.
important.
Right.
And
Right.
then it also depends too, the karma and what it is we're all bringing into this experience as well. So I would read somebody's chart and I would say, I would give them the roundabout, like all of the information. And then next time it would be more of like an embodiment session,
Right.
which would be like, where is their system at in terms of feeling safe enough to be on the path of their soul?
Yes.
Where is that landing within their system? How safe do they feel? How are they already showing up in a really beautiful way that is really aligned for where their soul wants to go? And then where are these pieces that are not wrong or bad, but where are the pieces that are pointing to past life experiences or the shadow patterns that need more safety, that need more love and need more holding so that they feel safe enough, allowing the soul to start taking the lead?
Yes, that's amazing. Amazing. I had an experience this past summer. My husband's stepfather passed away, and I was like fortunate enough to walk him to his death, like fully. And one thing that he continues to come back to me, and one thing that I felt when I was watching him, transition, was like I could see his eyes. And his eyes just, I mean, every time I go into a plant medicine journey, I always come back to his eyes. And the message is always there, like the soul leads the way.
Yeah.
And his eyes were leading me into that soul's return, always returning to the soul and letting that be the lead in the game here. And so I love what you're saying. And I also think where people, and I think women especially, get twisted, I think men and women, we get twisted is when, at least when I've experienced it, is, okay, well now we can't just spiritual bypass.
Right.
Like you said, you have to honor your evolution here. So if you're 25 and you're going through something, or even if you're 53 and you're going to the next level of your evolution, sometimes the body becomes this like place, a holding place, and it carries all those patterns. And I'm just curious, how do you handle yourself when you're like in the middle of, I'm going through something and I really want to bypass this uncomfortable feeling? What do we do with this?
Yeah, that's a great question.
That was like a roundabout, way of saying.
How do you do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I honor my timing and my pacing, and a big thing for me is giving myself permission to slow down. Even when life is requiring me and asking me to speed up in certain ways, my body might not be there yet. So it's my responsibility to pay attention of what is alive within me. What is alive within me? Even though I know that this is where I'm going, if I move too quickly, I'm going to create a no within my system, and I'm going to start protecting, and I'm not going to be in alignment with where I'm going. So how do for me, it's creating slowness, stability, and safety within myself, whether that's going in another room by myself. Solitude is a huge thing for me that I need. Solitude for me clears me. I'm very like intuitive and empathic. So it's like, what is actually mine here versus like, what have I maybe like picked up?
Right.
So I am able to clear myself in solitude. I'm able to reconnect with my body. Pleasure is another really big one for me. Not only is it clearing and stabilizing, but no matter what I'm moving through, if I'm feeling something very uncomfortable, whether that's grief, sadness, anger, fear, any of those things, if I can slow down and pause and be with what's alive long enough to where it's like, okay, it's safe to feel this. And then invite in pleasure, not necessarily like sex, but it can be like eating a piece of chocolate, like rubbing my arm. That connection point too creates so much safety within my system to like it's kind of like an existential kink. Like not only is it safe to experience discomfort, but it can be pleasurable.
Right.
So then it's like, now I can move through the world in a place where I'm like, okay, if discomfort is pleasurable, not that I'm wanting to seek out discomfort, but when it is alive in my system, I know that it can also feel good.
Wow, that just blew my mind. So we can actually face discomfort by offering pleasure to the body while in discomfort.
Totally. You can experience more than one thing at a time. So
Yeah.
I also went through, after my coaching certification, I also did like a somatic sexology program. I've done sexological body work. And a lot of that, both with facilitating and receiving a lot of the work, patterned my body into the experience of being able to hold polarity. So two things at once. So I remember going into one session like a year. What month is it right now? Almost a year ago.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, me
March
neither.
2nd,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah. Almost a year ago, my intention was my intention is to get turned on by my grief. Like, I want to be so deep in the experience of grief that I'm being devoured by my grief.
Yeah.
And then I want to get turned on by it. Like, how turned on can I get by this experience? Because then my body, it creates so much of an opening.
Yeah.
Through the pleasure portal of,
it's amazing.
Let's get turned on by this. Like,
right.
Like, yes, it's safe. That's step one. Let's create safety within the system. Okay, now that it's safe, what do I actually want? How can we make this feel good?
Right. Right. It makes me feel like there's so many portals to our body and our heart especially, but so many energy portals inside of our body that we often stop at, I'm not safe.
Yeah.
Right. I work with a lot of women that like that initial reaction is, I'm not going here. I'm not safe. And we return back to our minds or back to our patterns. And if we allow that, like almost that pulsating energy within us in all of our energy centers to open, there's like there's so many tunnels.
Yeah, it's infinite.
It's infinite inside of our own bodies.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
And the goal too isn't to always feel safe. If we're always feeling safe, we're not growing.
Right.
Growth requires the instability of like kind of cracking into the infrastructure we've created around what we believe to be safe in order to grow. So yes, we want to maintain safety, but in order to do that, if we're also growing, it requires us to also experience a sense of not being safe.
Right.
So how can I feel safe enough with this on safety to allow my system to stay open?
Right. Right. That's so true. I think that many of us get hooked up on our stories and the patterns of the way that we have reacted in childhood and on. And we come in with a lot of those patterns already like created from our past lives. So how do we step in? Like I work with a lot of women that are like, that sounds great, but like, how do I actually embody the safety versus non-safety?
Yeah.
How do we hold that in experientially?
Yeah, well, I think the more that you practice, the more you can hold, the more space you create. So it's a practice, just like everything else. It's not just like a one and done, like, oh, I created safety for this, so like I'm good. It's like, no, it's a consistent practice of building range within your system. So the full range of like, you know, fear and love. How much fear can you hold? How much love can you hold? Pain and pleasure. What's the range of that experience that your system is safely able to hold, knowing that you're gonna bump up against your edges because you're supposed to, and that's an opportunity to build more range to be able to hold more. So I would say too, like logistically, like masculine mind of like how to do that. Step one is finding support, without a doubt. Like there's no way I could have moved through any of this on my own ever. And I still have so much support from different practitioners, people in community. That's really important. And knowing too that most of our ruptures, past life or current life, happen in connection and happen in relationship. So trying to heal those things on our own or trying to heal those things can also induce a little bit of shame too, because being seen in those things is also really liberating, but they need to be healed in connection and in relationship.
It's very true.
Yeah.
This is kind of personal, but recently, so I've been married, 27 years. And we have a strong foundation. We have a great marriage. But in the last, like, I would say 6 months, 5, 6 months, there's been like this opening of so much depth in our marriage. And then we go, you have it, and then you go back
seasons.
and integrate it. And then you go back into real life. And then how do you bring that experience into your real life? But the act of being vulnerable with like your deepest shame is something that I think I've held close and dear to my heart. And then to fully express that, even with somebody that I've been in relationship with for 27 years.
Totally.
I didn't even know there was another layer.
Yeah.
And
it's like the next level of the video game.
Yes. It's like, oh, I just got to the next level. Yeah. And so there was this like awakening within, and exactly what you're saying, within that level, and that if you can open to that amount of shame or that amount of guilt or fear, whatever that side of it is, the flip side is like opening channels of the biggest and deepest amount of love. And then practicing that with a partner is the real work, right? It's the real embodied work.
1,000%. And I think that's the whole point of relationship too, is to wake us up and liberate us. And like, what a beautiful opportunity, to have, especially like a long-term committed relationship with one person that, and like you're saying, there's like still more, even though we've been together for so long, like there's still layers and undercurrents of things that are screaming to be seen sometimes. Not always screaming, but sometimes that's how it shows up. And shame can't exist in the light. Shame exists when it's trying to hide. Shame's only shame when we're like closing in on it. But when we allow it to be seen, it's so liberating. We're so open. And the medicine of allowing somebody else to see us in our deepest pain, our darkest fear, whatever that is, it's medicine for them too, because it's permission. So my belief is like, the more that we can, like, that is the work. Like, that's all it is. Like, if we can just consistently do that, like bear witness to someone that we love and show them love when they're in their most fucked up parts, like that's safety.
Totally. In Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah, there's this idea that a lot of us want to like ascend and touch spirit, touch the hand of God, touch spirit. And the teaching is actually like, you touch it and you come right. It's actually here. And that within our bodies, there's these light codes and there's energy channels, and similar to the chakras. And there's so much within us. I'm curious if you've touched that within yourself, like the God within, right? That energy within, or how you dance with that.
Yeah, I think you can go in either direction. What I've found to be more potent and powerful is actually going like underground into my darkness and doing a little bit of like excavating and like looking at those parts of myself. I find like this tattoo even is of Inanna, the goddess that brings heaven to earth. But in order to be able to do that, she had to go through the 7 stages of the underworld and take off a piece of clothing until she was naked, which represents vulnerability. And then once she was there, they asked her, like, she had to leave something valuable behind in order to bring heaven to earth, to serve the community. And she left her husband and then came. But what I'm alluding to is, for me, being able to have more access to the God within me, I've created more space for that to exist by going into the parts of myself that don't feel like they're worthy to be God, that don't feel like they're worthy of that unconditional love, that don't feel like they can be in the light. So I can go this way all I want and connect to like the heavenly realms and the ethereal spirit. And there's so much there, and that's very beautiful. But if I only do that, I can't bring that to earth, because there's still that part, there's still the parts of me under here that are like, oh, but wait about me. What about me?
I love that. I mean, that's just the shadow. I don't even like the word shadow anymore. I see it as like the bones,
or even the unseen sometimes, the unseen parts of ourselves.
the idea that God or spirit is within everything, and that so many of us leave behind those parts, I think is the greatest gift. I mean, I find it also interesting, like that ethereal realms, that liminal space is sometimes the guide into those parts of us that are totally, like, maybe it's the channel that leads us to the little girl on the floor crying, saying, I don't feel godly. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious if you've had moments of that, and
Totally.
if you feel, vulnerable, which I know you are, like, to let me know what that felt like to you and how you handled it.
Yeah. So I think obviously it started when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I had a lot of experiences of feeling like I was too much,
Mm-hmm.
feeling pretty emotionally shut down, not connected to my heart, not connected to anything really that was alive within me,
Yeah.
which, created a lot of disconnection and fragmentation to the parts of myself that were needing to know that they were loved.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, as I've like gone through some inner child healing and come into deeper connection with the parts of myself that felt lost or misunderstood or misplaced or not worthy, after years of that showing up relationally,
Mm-hmm.
with, having, toxic relationship dynamics with my parents that were just not supportive or serving for any of us. I got to the point where I really needed things to change.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wanted life to feel different. I didn't want life to feel hard. I didn't want to feel like I had to hide.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to feel like I was wrong or bad.
Right.
Like that's, and that was the key for me, is like, even though I had those experiences of feeling wrong or bad, of feeling like I was too much. And one of my friends who I also had on my podcast that's a psychic, one thing she reflected back to me is, you believe in God. Why don't you believe God believes in you?
Mm-hmm.
You think that you see God, but you forget that God sees you. It was almost like this pedestal thing of like only going to spirit and only going to that kind of love if I was showing up in a good way. And then I would, good girl. And then I would disconnect. Mm-hmm. Your phone just 1111. And then I would disconnect. If I had any shame or guilt around what was happening in my life, or what I was experiencing, or if I felt like I was being a shitty mom, or if like I ended a relationship and it felt shitty the way that it ended, or if, I decided I was going to change my career again and I had shame around that for like what I thought people were going to believe. I also disconnected from source when I was doing that, because I thought I had the same connection with source for a long time that I had with my parents as a child.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to get in trouble. They're not going to love me, so I can't go there. But then when life's really good, it's like, oh, now I can go there because I want you to see how good I am.
Right.
So I had to remember that was always present. I'm still loved unconditionally, even when I'm not showing up good, even when I'm too much. Like that doesn't go away. And that allowed me to like give myself permission to offer that unconditional love to the parts of myself that never felt worthy enough to have that or receive it, even if it was present.
Right. I mean, I think, thank you for sharing that. And it feels to me so much like you've really explored who's under the good girl and how to bring her up. And even if she's bad, right, that you're loved. I think that so many of us, so many women we're kind, we're nice, we're relatable, we're connected.
We don't want to be like the angry bitch.
We don't want to
be slutty. We don't want to be all of these things that are labeled so terrible, because then we're not good. That's right.
This is so lame, but I'm going to say this anyway.
I doubt it.
I mean, I have a new puppy who's really just thrown my idea of good girl out the window, and like to be brought to my edge by somebody, right? And to literally be brought to my edge on Saturday, I turned to my husband and I was like, what if God is at my edge? And that it is okay for me to like explore. It doesn't mean we're going to act on all of it, but what if it's okay for me to explore something that I usually say, well, I'm not a good mom if I do that.
Totally.
right? Like I'm a bad mom if I do this.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not there for my kids, and the puppy is just representing the mom in me.
Yeah.
And so it is like that part that we disconnect from God or spirit source because we're bad, because we've done something bad.
Yeah.
And like, what if we go into that darker? And I think a lot of people think darkness is like scary and
It's
we can't
so
go
scary.
there.
Yeah.
That means we're right. That we're
Until
not
you do
safe.
it. Until you do it. And then you're like, all right, that's,
Oh,
I can do
the
that.
next level.
I could probably do that again.
Right. Right. But that, like, what's underneath our good girl is really important to explore, to be all like, to bring the godliness inside of I even hate, like, maybe it's the witch.
Oh, for sure. She's there too.
She's in there. She's not so light and cheery, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, this is no bullshit.
Yeah.
Like we need
the
to
witch is
explore
there,
all of
the
us.
sacred slut, the boundary bitch.
Mhm.
She's all underneath there. And for me, it was getting comfortable disappointing people.
Yeah.
Like underneath the layers of who I've projected myself to be, so people perceive me a certain way,
Right.
Underneath all of that
Right.
is actually who I really am.
Totally.
But you don't really find that out until you start playing with some of like the darker
Right.
aspects of yourself, which
Right.
aren't necessarily dark, but maybe they're just more real.
Exactly.
It's important to find those edges.
And I think we piss a lot of people off. Like when we
That's
start
not a bad
acting
thing.
a different way. No,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. But I think it does kind of just it shakes the boundaries, the foundation of how you live your life in all areas.
We create our identity relationally. So like we
Mhm.
have ourselves, but then who we are gets we're continually changing and growing, right? So like the people that we're relating to, that's how we're actually changing who we are.
Right.
And our identity. So when that also gets questioned or someone is like, oh, this is not you, their sense of safety, their own identity also starts to change and grow.
Mhm.
And that's why people get a little pissed off because
Right.
it puts all of what they believe in question too.
Shaky ground.
Yeah.
Totally. And I also wonder how you feel about anger, right? So the way that I was taught in somatics is like anger is the first emotion. And
Mhm.
underneath anger, there's always like fear, terror, shame, death, right?
Yeah.
But I think in our world today, there's a lot of story about being kind. Why can't we just be kind? Why can't
Mhm.
we listen to the other? Why can't we were supposed to do all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering how you feel about, there's a book so long ago when I was in my 20s, I read it. It was called The Dance of Anger, I think.
Mhm.
I can't remember her name. But why can't we be angry? It doesn't mean we're going to go blow shit up. But why can't we stand in that real raw emotion of like, I'm pissed?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think our world right now wants us to feel that.
Well, no, because what happens is when we do stand in that, we come into more of our power. And so
Right.
as women, of course, they don't want that to happen. But
Right.
I think the most dangerous thing we can do as women is not experience and not play with the anger and the rage that is within us, because
Mhm.
it seeps out in really unsupportive ways. Like if I had never worked on my anger, and before I did, it would seep out with my kids. It would seep
Right.
out with partners, and this happens. Like anger is a no. Anger is just a boundary. Anger is
Mhm.
not bad. So
Right.
building a healthy relationship with that. And anger is also pointing to what you really care about.
Mhm.
Anger is also love. Anger is trying to protect what you deeply care about
Yeah.
and what you want to protect for yourself and for the world. Like
Mhm.
what fucking breaks your heart?
Yeah.
Get angry about those things.
Right.
Those things are okay to be angry about when those are in
Right.
question. It's not okay for us to not deal with our anger and have that seep out.
Mhm.
And that's the kindness piece where it's like, yes, we have a responsibility to be kind, but it is not kind to lie about not being angry.
Yes.
That is not
totally.
kind, because that is not true.
100%.
And anger doesn't have to be unkind. You can
Right.
express anger in a very kind way.
Right.
And also, if you haven't played with it before, I would highly recommend getting into a container where you can fucking just like go ape shit with your
Yeah.
anger and get
Yeah.
all of that shit out.
Totally.
And it doesn't have to all come out at once, but we have such a limited amount of safety within our systems and capacity to experience anger because we're scared that we're going to hurt someone. We're scared that we're going to push people away because we get angry.
Right.
And then it comes back to the good girl thing is, oh, I'm going to be too much and no one's going to love me and I'm going to be fucking alone if I get angry.
Right.
And it's like,
Totally.
okay, even if that happens,
Okay.
where are you going to land? Where are you going to
Right.
land? Like being fully expressed and being in what's true is always going to leave you more authentic and more connected than trying to be perceived as kind, trying to
Right.
be perceived as connected. And, you know, it comes back to like, what's actually true and alive for you? Like what's actually true and alive for you and what's actually true and alive in your body. Be kind if you're in a place where it feels like
Kindness.
kind is true.
Right.
Express anger in a very healthy way without dumping it and outpouring it on someone as if it's their responsibility to manage your anger. Express it in a way where you're safely holding it as a boundary instead of dumping it. And don't dump it on yourself either, because that's what happens when we hold it and we don't allow it to take up space. It grows and festers within the system. And then we get things like autoimmune diseases.
Right. It's true. I mean, if you look at, just autoimmune diseases in general, like mostly it's women.
Yeah, 80 to 90%.
Right.
And anger is like one of the leading causes.
That's right. And it's like, what if spirit and what if like love is in anger, right? What if anger, that's what I did. I sat there wanting to slam my dog against the wall. Obviously I didn't, but I could feel the rage, right? And it's such an uncomfortable place. And to sit there and just say, I am going to feel all this rage and what's underneath it, right?
Yeah.
Guilt and feeling like blah, blah, blah. But what if spirit is in this real, raw, dark emotion that we don't play with enough?
Yeah.
It's growth.
Yeah.
By the way, I can feel the spark. I saw a spark come out of you. Right here.
Yeah.
I can see it again.
I was just thinking, well, and also anger can turn you on so much. What I've experienced with like anger releases and anger burns in a container with other women, we would do like move through like an anger practice and then after a pleasure practice. Anger is also a portal to your power and to your pleasure.
Amazing.
And it's like it allows you to become so sovereign in what's true for you in all areas. Because if you're not in close connection with what a no is for you,
right,
your yeses are not going to be true.
Yeah, you're not being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
I feel like it's such an ancestral teaching.
Oh, it's so deep.
It runs so deep to honor how you really feel and make people feel uncomfortable with how you really feel it's not what our grandparents learned, and God love them. They were probably in some serious survival.
For sure.
And obviously never taught. And the fact that we're awakening to this, and I think younger people are awakening to this, but at least I'm curious how you feel if you've done some ancestral diving. It's given me so much love and reverence for the women in my ancestry that just didn't have this language.
Totally.
And that we're never, we can't go back to those days. We can energetically, but so much reverence for they weren't able to, they were, and they were hung for it or they were killed for it.
1,000%.
Right. But
I feel that one deeply.
Yeah. I've bumped up into her deeply as well. So I'm curious if you've done any ancestral diving into that.
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of, I need to check. It should be back soon. I did my ancestry DNA because I'm wanting to get really clear on where I'm going to do a pilgrimage. I'm German. It's likely Germany.
Okay.
Which goes very hand in hand with all of what I know to be true around witches and what happened there and all of this and all that.
Yeah.
And for me, I also know that I'm the first woman in my bloodline on both sides to like be where I'm at and do this work and have the support that I have the awareness I have, and have so much choice with what I'm going to do with this information. It's finally safe. It's finally safe for me to choose differently. Wow. Like I can look back and see how many women that came before me, it was not safe for them. They
Right.
didn't have the resources. They didn't have the support from partners or community to really own who they were and to step into their power. For whatever reason, it was not safe. And then if you go back further, it's like, of course they didn't, because they were all getting killed.
That's right. That's right.
And so I've had to do a lot of work around things that I did experience in past lives. And some of that even I had to do before I started podcasting. I had like another layer of like healing some of the things from like being hung for using my voice. And, you know, yeah, having to really create more safety in this experience and remind myself the timeline that I'm on and the present day experience I'm having. Not that could not happen, but it's not currently happening, even though it happened before.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that's all really important to look at. And it's very, when we have the capacity, the awareness, and the resources and the support to do something about this and choose differently, I think that's our responsibility. Because we're just going to wait for the next person to do it. Like, am I just going to wait for my daughters to hopefully do it and then just watch them? And then at the end of my life be like, fuck, I wish I would have done that.
Right.
Like, absolutely not.
Right. I love your idea of going back into your ancestry. And like, I also feel like when we go back in there, I can kind of feel yours.
Yeah, tell me.
I feel a particular woman. It feels like maybe 1800s. And I feel actually a group of women that have been, I see that they're using their hands and they've been doing, like, they feel very powerful. So when you're talking, what I get is to help you not forget that even though on the outset or on the outside it looks like they were hung for these things and they didn't have a voice and they didn't have the power, that there are many, in particular there's a group of women here in your ancestry that were working together for in their days. They're also mixing things. Do you like plants?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you feel an affinity. So they're making, there's some sort of, they're using their hands with something. But it feels to me like they're like, why would you think we're not using our power?
Yeah, no, totally.
Right? Like, and some of them are not.
And that's me just getting locked into like one experience of the past timelines when there's also, Light has reflected this to me too. He's like, bring your awareness though to the other possibilities of what has happened in the timelines. Yeah. 100%.
They're like, why would you think that we're not powerful? And also they're not afraid to die. And they weren't afraid to die. They weren't there. They don't feel like, even though
we'll bring that here now.
Yeah, I can see some hanging, but like what I hear is like, there is no death, so there is only life. And so why would you think we're not afraid? Yeah, like that's the energy you have. Yeah, is like, I want to use the word fuck with you all the time because
that's perfect.
That's your energy, right? Like, I don't give a fuck. And I love it. And I think the good girl is like, she feels just kind of mixed in with like the shadow girl or the wisdom women. Totally. And like, so you have like this hardcore group of women that are like, why we're not scared. We weren't scared to die. We're not scared to live. They're underground, but it's because they needed more freedom to be in the shadow.
Totally. I love that so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that.
Like,
feels very
get on the bus,
powerful
bitch.
for you. Like, no, we're not afraid to die. Yeah. Like, death is not scary. And that feels like your energy completely. Yeah. Like, there's like, oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Like, if we're not afraid to die, then like life is eternal. And the good girl and all these archetypes within us are just archetypes. Like, they're just like roles that we're playing here and there and here and there. Totally. Like, to me, you own a lot of them. I know there's layers. Totally. You know, we all have layers. But to me, like, you own so much of them. Yeah. Thank you for that. And now my work after I leave the podcast today is, if all of this is true, how am I going to decide to show up now? That is true. Right? Then we bring it into our, okay, how do we integrate that message? Exactly. How do we, it's not just a message. If that's all true, how does that land in my body? How do I hold that? And then what choices do I make from there moving forward? Yes. Oh, wow. It all opens up. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, when that's the point of doing this, like, I love when you said, like, we need to go, I prefer to go in the underworld, into the underbelly. And I like to live there too.
Yeah.
I look like a good girl, but I like the shadow part.
I see that though.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting that you can dive in there, but then you can bring it out, right? And then we can integrate that. You integrate it into the body,
Totally.
and then you bring spirit into it, and it's like this beautiful kind of melting pot of
for sure
all parts of you.
Yeah. You go in to find the gifts and to unlock what it is that you haven't been able to unlock yet.
Yeah.
You find these little pieces of yourself and these little treasures, and then it's your responsibility to bring that to the world.
Yes. Yes.
So that other people can do that too.
Exactly. So you become a light to your daughters and to whoever you touch and in your relationships. And,
yeah.
I mean, it's infinite. I mean, that's your energy.
Oh, thank you.
It is.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So to kind of wrap this up, even though we could go on forever.
We can do another one.
Yeah.
There's plenty of time.
I think we should. How would you say if we started this conversation with you saying, I believe that we can follow the soul light and not the soul, like I'll paraphrase, not the story of where we've come from, that the North Node is kind of where we're headed.
Yeah.
So who are you when you head into your North Node? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So my North Node is in Pisces in my first house. And so what that means is my role in this lifetime, my soul growth is to, first house is the house of self. It's the house of like my avatar, my front facing brand, how people see me, my body, all of that. It's also my needs and my desires. So my work has been, how do I consistently honor what I want and what I need above trying to make all of my relationships perfect? How do I put myself first, but doing it in a way, because it's in Pisces, that is surrendered to God? So also, what does God want to bring through me into this lifetime? And so it's like direct access to spirit, living in a surrendered state, knowing that if I honor myself first, life will show up for me.
I love that. I love that. So with that light that you're honoring through the light of God, moving through yourself, anything you're bringing out into the world, anything changing for you, growing?
Yeah, well, the fusion of astrology with my coaching, that's happening now. There'll be more of that. I'm in the process of starting a book that's going to be around astrology as well. That'll be a tool for people to use. With some embodiment pieces too. So it's not just information. And then my partner, Light, and I are also going to be doing workshops and ceremonies as well, which will be very magical. And as soon as my website is updated, all of it will be there in like a week or two, as soon as I get my person all the information that I need to. And then my Instagram handle is The Cosmic Mistress. And I'm just open to chatting with whoever, talking to whoever. I fucking love astrology. If you have any questions or you want to send me your information, like, let's go. I'll look at it for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming. And I think it's to be continued. I think that we're supposed to do something embodied on a podcast and show people what it feels like. Yeah. So we will go from there. Awesome. And just thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thanks.